My introduction and first memory of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was brought upon by the first live action adaptation film from 1990 directed by Steve Barron. More specifically, I remember scenes with the turtles having pizza, trying to figure out a catchphrase for themselves, and listening to music in the sewers of New York City. I remember those scenes with the turtles being teenagers and on a cool fight scene like everybody else. But why? I think it comes to no surprise to anybody if you know me that I'm
a huge TMNT fan.
I have seen every single turtle media, from the movies to the shows, bought some of the toys, and sometimes brush up on my comic books from time to time. But what I want to talk about today is the first movie that came out in 1990. But before we talk about the first movie, we need to talk about the origins of the TMNT. When it came to the TMNT franchise, the story started as an independent comic book made by two men, Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, who were just friends trying to make each other laugh after being rejected so many times by a lot of different comic books publishers because of a character they made called the Fugitoid. By making the slowest animal alive, a turtle, being a deadly ninja assassin and having nunchucks as weapons. Judging on the turtle's first draft, you can tell that Kevin and Peter weren't thinking that this creature would ever do anything. So, they kept going with the idea, and they made 3 more turtles to be with the initial turtle, and being called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But after that joke, they stumbled upon an idea that would make the world a little bit more radical. Eventually, after creating the characters, the world, the story, Kevin and Peter decided to self-publish their own comic, and having only 3,275 copies. And after those copies sold out, they decided to print out more and decided to make even more comics, eventually becoming into an independent, gritty comic. Based on the popularity of the comics, they got licensing to do toys based on the comic. However, because of the comic being dark, gritty, really, really, really bloody, they decided to make a Saturday morning cartoon. When it came to developing the show, they decided to make some changes like the tone to appeal to 8-year-olds to get them to buy the toys. The showrunners had playmates gave a big swing by giving the turtles different personalities. Leonardo the leader, Donatello the tech geek, Raphael the sarcastic smartass, and Michelangelo the party dude. Even gave the turtles characteristics of loving pizza and created a song that everybody knows to this day. You know which one I'm talking about.
Heroes in a half shell, turtle power.
After that, the turtles became an overnight sensation. For the franchise being around for a couple of years, it was doing pretty good on its own. With the comics and the toys and the show, the only thing that would be missing is a live-action adaptation movie, right? And you'll be right. When it came to the direction of the film, the writers of the movie, Todd W. Lang and Bobby Herbeck, decided to go with the mature themes of the comics and the personalities of the cartoon, using the best of both worlds to make a movie about growing up. When it came to this movie actually becoming into the movie we know today, it was because of one man, Mark Friedman. He was basically a freelance for Kevin and Peter to make the toys in the first place. And he wanted to make the movie before the idea sounded good with Kevin, Peter, and the team at Playmates. But he didn't want to give up on the movie to just be an idea he had and never went anywhere. So he went to Gold Harvest Pictures with the best stunt guys in the industry and an incredible person known as Jim Henson to make the costumes. I love the way these Jim Henson costumes were created in the first place. They're so good. Just the way that the Jim Henson Company brought them to life is something we're never going to see in live action, like, ever.
God, I love being a turtle! No joke!
I thought as a kid that these turtles in this movie could be real one day because they were kids like me, so I wanted to be teenagers like them. And so far, so good. Just the way the costumes fluidly move with every motion and action they're in, the way they talk with the voices coming out of their mouth perfectly syncing up. It almost feels like the people working on this film brought in actual turtles instead of guys in costumes. But despite those great and wonderful things, the movie's main focus was to make a connection with the audience old and new, and having a message that you would only get to see in a TMNT movie. So, let's talk about it. When the movie starts, we get a shot of New York. Not much of a surprise to anybody. Everyone who is and isn't a TMNT fan would know that Turtles are from New York City. The city is their home. The city is the motivation of the movie. But something seems wrong. Something doesn't sit quite with the audience. And it's the news report that April O'Neil gives about teenagers' delinquency.
Of young boys or teenagers at the scenes have been filed.
The way the movie shows these kids stealing, robbing from innocent people, and doing all this just to be cool for a mysterious man in charge of it all, making these teenagers into ninja for the Foot Clan and controlled by the Shredder. It shows a different side of New York that was a big problem in the 90s, really showing the realism of the movie. Except for the whole ninja part, that was just created for the movie. And then the next scene, we see how April gets mugged by these teenagers after leaving work and is saved by the heroes in the half shell. However, before we get to see the turtles, we only get to hear them saving April in the shadows. And they're gone by the time the cops show up to the scene. The movie makes sure that these Ninja Turtles are teenagers. After they save April, they're celebrating because that was their first save. They're proud of it. They're just being themselves without anybody caring about anybody's opinion. The Turtles' characteristics are a little bit different from the cartoon. They feel more like pre-TMNT than the TMNT we actually know and love. The changes of the movie aren't completely different from the show. If anything, as I mentioned before, they do use elements from the TV show and the comics. The only thing they do is that they create a bridge to sort of be its own thing. We see the maturity of the comics with the first scene with Splinter. He's talking about how good these turtles are as ninjas. He also talks about his final lesson to teach the turtles, the main idea of the film. However, they ignore it to play their own version of the Tequila song.
Yeah! Ninjutsu!
But before they talk about the ninjutsu song, Splinter talks about the future with his kids.
You are still young, but one day I will be gone.
The first TMNT movie shows parents' legacy with their kids. It's the thing they talk about over and over again, and it represents the good and bad of it. The good being the way the turtles were taught by Splinter and wanting to protect the city, and the bad being the troubled teens with the Foot Clan. The whole point of the turtles in this movie is to show their humanity. It's to show the innocence of the turtles.
It's me.
Something that makes them different from the misbehaving teens. And we see their innocence with the party one of the turtles, Michelangelo. The version of Michelangelo that everybody knows is usually the one who is sometimes lazy and loves pizza more than his brothers. You know, the party dude when it comes to the cartoon. But in the movie, we see a more loving side of him that he has with his brothers and his father. The type of love we don't really get from him in later incarnations. They would just strip him down to just the party dude and the dumb one of the group. You know, the butt of the joke. He's the one who likes to make the mood happy, or he likes to ignore what's going on because he's oblivious. When it comes down to the conversation with Splinter, we see how Donnie wanted to talk to Mikey about what they would do without Splinter.
Time's up. $3 off.
Now, I'm not saying that Michelangelo is being rude to Donnie, because he's not. We know that out of the group, they have the strongest connection out of the family. They love to talk when Leo and Raph are arguing.
Pork rind. Pork rind.
But when it comes down to Donnie wanting to talk about their father not being around them, Mikey doesn't want to know. Because Mikey is scared. In fact, they all are. But what makes Mikey different is that he hides his fear from everybody else. Especially when it comes down to the Foot kidnapping Splinter. We see how the turtles react differently. But he tries to make everything fun. He's sad, yes, but he doesn't want to admit because he knows his father is fine. He knows that he will find him. He knows that he will rescue Splinter. Until we get that famous campfire scene. I'll get onto that much later. He hides his fear with jokes as a defense mechanism, but he is still not alone with his brothers. Speaking of them, let's talk about it. He's barely in the movie. Okay, I know I say that as a joke, but in all honesty, he kind of gets the short end of the stick in this movie. They kind of brush him aside, and they kind of don't really use his smarts in some scenes. He's just there as the fourth turtle. He's not a big part of the movie, unlike the other three. It's kind of unfortunate because when it comes down to my favorite TMNT, it is Donatello. He's the one I wanted to be. He's not really using anything that makes him unique or special. So he's just there hanging out with Michelangelo, which isn't a bad thing. I kind of hate how they don't have that sibling relationship in later incarnations. However, just because he gets the short end of the stick when it comes to character development, I'm looking at you, TMNT 2012. Let's talk about the turtle who actually does get some character development. An arc, if you will. When it comes to Leonardo, he's more joyful and playful with his brothers, and feels less of a leader, but more of a team player. However, this Leonardo is still the same Leonardo we know. After the beginning rescue scene with April O'Neil, he tells everything to Splinter. He's listening to his father with the utmost respect. He's basically Splinter Jr. Leo is the one who loves to be with his family. He listens to Splinter, but he also loves to goof off with his brothers.
Talk to me, baby.
Heck, in the beginning of the movie, he doesn't have any beef with Raphael like in later incarnations.
That okay with you? Yeah.
He is the go with the flow kind of guy. Until his father goes missing and he has to be in charge because that's the only thing he knows what to do. However, he doesn't know how to take care of his family as a family. He only knows how to take care of his family as a team for battle. He tries to be his father without realizing it, but he fails because he is not his father. He feels that he felt Splinter because he didn't listen to him. He tries to make his brother listen to him, but as I mentioned before, Donnie and Mikey are oblivious. Raphael is mad. Raphael is mad because Leo is trying to be Splinter, and the last person who talked to Raphael face to face was Splinter. Leo didn't want to be the leader of the group because he's trying to keep everybody in check before they lose himself and he loses them. Leonardo doesn't understand what Raphael is going through, so he gets angry at him.
Yeah? Well, you act like a jerk sometimes, you know that?
And what does that lead to? The turtles getting ambushed by the foot, and they lose because they don't know how to work together. Leonardo feels that he failed everybody in his family, especially the brother he almost lost during the ambush. Raphael has a bad temper. What a surprise. But it's something that we have always gotten from the comic books. However, it's different from the comic books because everybody was just the angry red one. However, after this film, we have always gotten that anger characteristic for Raphael. In the show, he has more of the smart mouth, the guy who likes to make jokes to get on people's nerves. He basically has Spider-Man jokes to make the bad guy annoyed and distracted.
Turtle is definitely getting on my nerves.
However, that's not to say that they still use this sarcastic attitude, because they still do, as a defense mechanism for the character.
Gosh, I do hope there's more of them.
But when it comes down, they make him the most relatable character because of his flaws. He gets mad in the beginning of the movie because he loses his twin Sai.
Hey!
When he goes out to the movie theater to get some fresh air, he stops a couple of teenagers who just robbed a lady. He's trying to do good. But when he fights Casey Jones, he loses again and he lost his temper.
Slow, freak, I got work to do! Freak! Freak! Damn!
He also tries to do some more good by saving April O'Neil at the subway. But it leads to the Foot Clan finding where the turtles live and kidnapping Splinter. At April's antique store where she lives, he gets in an argument with Leonardo and he gets out in the open being sad, and the Foot eventually finding him, leading to his biggest beating ever, almost putting him to the point of death. But throughout this whole movie, we get a character who knows he's flawed because of his anger. He tries to get Raphael to stop becoming into something he isn't.
My Master Yoshi's first rule was possess the right thinking. Only then can one receive the gifts of strength, knowledge, and peace.
He doesn't have to be alone because he has someone there with him, his brothers and his father. When Splinter talks to Raphael and tells him he's flawed, but he's also unique,
You are unique among your brothers, for you choose to face this enemy alone. But as you face it, do not forget them and do not forget me. I am here, my son.
Splinter tells him that he loves him and understands him because he has seen that anger before in a person called Oroku Saki. It's an anger that makes the Shredder the antagonist of the movie. Someone else who was misunderstood by love of a woman, Kang Shen. And when his father goes missing, Raphael gets mad. The father that promised him who would be there for him is missing. The reason he's mad at Leonardo is because he feels that he's alone. At this point in the movie, he has made mistake after mistake. He's angry at those mistakes. He wants to fix those mistakes, but he's impatient. He wants to forgive himself for his father. But he doesn't want to admit his mistakes, his anger, his pain without his father to his brothers. He doesn't know how to share his emotions with his brothers. He doesn't like to talk about it because he shows anger. His brothers just writes it off as blowing off steam or him just being angry at something. But the only one who did understand was Splinter until we get the rooftop scene. Raphael uses the thing that Splinter said to not let his anger cloud his judgment, to control the anger when it comes to fighting. And he does. But he's overwhelmed with the big number of foot ninjas they are. He gets his butt kicked and put into a coma. The Turtles fight the Foot Clan in April's place. Everybody is holding their own. But just like what happened to Raphael happens to the rest of the Turtles. It gets bad to the point where Casey Jones has to save their butts because he was spying on Raphael. And they leave the city defeated and broken. Sure, April and Casey had the Turtles back, the Turtles themselves, they need some time to heal and rest. Now, before we talk about the farmhouse, let's talk about April and Casey. Both of these characters' storylines are kind of intertwined with the main plot. However, that's not to say that these plot points are bad. If anything, if it wasn't for these two characters, the Turtles would have been alone and would have never saved the city in the first place.
For example,
April's storyline has been focused on for a little bit. Not as much as the Michael Bay movie, but enough to get to know the character. He has a big story about these crimes and how it could be intertwined.
I think you know just as much as I do about this Foot Clan, and I don't think you're doing anything about it.
And she's scared because it's happening to the streets of New York, the city she loves. It gets to the point where she's in trouble with the Foot Clan and gets jumped and needed to be saved by Raphael. But she also gets in trouble with her job at the point of her getting fired.
you're fired, April.
And the person who tells her that news is none other than Casey Jones.
Wait, hey, you just saved yourself an 8-mile round tripper.
Casey Jones in this movie is the best character. He's up there with Roderick from Diary of a Wimpy Kid. That's how good he is. But his story does the same thing that April has. He has his own agenda. He wanted to do good on his own terms.
You did your job, now get out of here and let me do mine.
He doesn't rely on teamwork. His mindset is of a lone wolf. However, when he meets Raph, sure, he makes fun of him for being a guy in a rubber mask without knowing he's a turtle.
Hey, what are you, some sort of punker? Huh?
Without understanding he's a humanoid turtle, he does think that Raphael is alone until he meets the rest of the turtles and April. He was watching Raphael because he thought he was a loner. And surprise, surprise, he saves the turtles' butt. The whole part with the gang in the farmhouse is to show the lowest point of the turtles. It's the point of the film where they don't know what to do. They left the city they love because they feel that the city doesn't need them anymore. They feel they're not strong enough to defeat the Foot Clan. but in fact, the city has gotten worse. The Foot has made progress with their crime spree, and Shredder doesn't know where he is,
He is still missing.
though he abuses Splinter to tell him, but Splinter doesn't know neither. They also feel like they lost their chance to find Splinter, so they do their own thing. Donnie does get a little bit of a character arc, but it's more of an interaction. He talks to Casey Jones by also fixing an old truck after the party wagon kinda took a hit, by making fun of each other in insults in the alphabet.
You're the geek, Camel Breath. The Thornhead, L Flips.
According to a deleted scene, Mikey was gonna hide his plane with Splinter's kidnapping. Leo is taking care of Raphael, and when Raphael wakes up, they forgive each other.
Boy, we missed you.
Because of this interaction, Leonardo and Raphael do not fight in the trilogy again, because they know that their love for each other is more important than their disagreement. The same disagreement that got them separated in the first place. And sure, they will fight again in the timeline, aka the 2007 CGI movie. But I believe that that is because Leonardo leaving his family to become a better leader made Raphael bitter because of Leonardo being absent. But that's a story for another day. They become into a team. They're fighting once again. They're training again. They're still not whole. Leo is alone thinking about his father. He didn't listen to his father before, so he decides to meditate and finds out Splinter's alive. And he tells his brother to listen to him because he knows his father is alive.
We all think he's alive.
I don't think.
The fire scene is the most important scene of the movie. So important, in fact, I gave this part of the movie a dedicated part. It is part of the movie that everybody remembers. The part that makes the movie a Ninja Turtles movie is the scene where I fell in love with the Ninja Turtle franchise. Everybody gives Leo a chance to listen and
Now, everybody, close your eyes and concentrate.
finally learn Splinter's final lesson.
I am proud of you, my sons. Tonight, you have learned the final and greatest truth of the ninja. Together, there is nothing your four minds cannot accomplish. Help each other and always remember the true force that binds you. I love you all, my sons.
We see them opening their eyes, knowing that Splinter loves them all, and they finally accept that they might not see Splinter alive again. I love the fact that we see Mikey is the one who hits him the hardest, just hits so close to home. But they finally learned the hardest lesson as a family, and now they know what they have to do.
It's time to go back.
Danny has a small but important role. He was created for the movie, but it's not to say he is new to this movie at this point. He's one of the teenagers we see in the beginning of the movie. Sure, he doesn't mug April O'Neil or causes the Turtle any literal pain, but he is the one who causes the plot to move forward and what the message of the movie is. He has full loyalty of the Foot Clan itself. He does stuff that gets him in trouble, but he refuses to tell the truth when it comes to the outside world. When it comes to his world, he thinks that it's the Foot Clan. He tells the Shredder about the enemy. He tells him where they are, which is April's home. He steals stuff from random people and from people he knows like April O'Neil. He gets arrested and Chief Sternum calls his dad. Even his dad doesn't know why he's doing all this stuff in the first place.
I make more than enough money to provide for both of us, and you're stealing. Why?
But he does know. Danny represents acceptance. He wants to fit in any way necessary for that loyalty. He wants to fit in, so he does stuff that he isn't proud of. He does it to not be alone. He still feels sorry for the damages he causes at April's place, but because he did it for the clan, he thinks he did it for a bigger reason. Until he meets Splinter. When Danny talks to Splinter, he talks about the clan is his home, and he has no one but his friends. When Splinter tells him the hard truth, he doesn't know what to believe. The whole time he thinks that his father is in the way, and the Shredder is the only one who's there for him. It stays with him to the point he runs away from home. He runs away from both homes. He hides in the Turtles' place. Laird tells him about Shredder's philosophy, and Danny knows the truth. When we see the Shredder for the first time,
he's been hiding in the shadows, he's seen things.
Trying to get April to shut up about the clan in the city. The only thing they hide from this man is his backstory. However, we get his motivation. He's trying to use misbehaving teenagers to recruit them for the Foot Clan. The Foot is not a random faceless army like the clones from Star Wars, or they're not robots that blow up if you hit them with a feather like in the cartoon. The Shredder makes sure the kids themselves do whatever they want and having fun, hanging out, breaking rules, but they have to do something in return, being a part of his army. He makes sure to tell these kids that the world hates them for being themselves, and the only thing they can do is rely on him for guidance.
You are here because the outside world rejects you.
Why does he want to do that? Why does he want to use love to manipulate these kids? What happened to him to cause him to do all these things? Well,
Got the answer!
we get 2 flashback scenes in the movie about the origins of Splinter. He was a pet of Hamato Yoshi and became a dad in the sewers of New York. We get how Splinter knows how to do ninjutsu because of mimicry. But we also see how the Shredder and Splinter know each other. Hamato Yoshi had a lover, Tain Shen, who chose to be with Hamato Yoshi over Oroku Saki. And when Shredder kills Tain Shen and Hamato Yoshi, Splinter gets mad at him and scars the hell out of him because of his love of his owner. Saki doesn't know how to love because he never had a chance to be loved. I know in later incarnations we get the why, the how, and the buildup of Oroku Saki killing Hamato Yoshi and Tain Shen. However, in some iterations, Hamato Yoshi is Splinter. But you have to give credit to this movie to give us that characteristics of the Shredder. But I like how this is the reason he does this. He uses love to tell these kids who feel alone that he is there for them. When he gets mad, he makes sure everybody knows it. To the point that Shredder's right-hand man kills one of these teenagers who is trying to reason with him. He doesn't care about these kids, but these kids have the utmost respect for him because they actually believe him. The amount of power that he has over these teens,
It's crazy.
the teens don't know what love is compared to obedience. There's a scene in the movie where we get 2 sets of Foot Clan members. The ones with PJs are fighting with the Ninja Turtles, and the one who haven't gotten the PJs are the ones who are fighting inside the hideout, backing up their other master. And when Shredder's right-hand man fights Casey Jones wins. And the exchange that the Foot members have with Casey Jones beating on their master,
It's insane.
You call this here and that down there family?
Casey Jones himself is saying that whatever the Foot Clan is doing is wrong. And this is the same man who's a loner, who has the mindset if you can handle it yourself, you can do it by yourself. Whatever the Foot Clan has isn't family. It's obedience. It's a commitment to do bad. And now it's time for the final showdown.
Almost done.
You better.
We get a showdown that starts with the Turtles at home and the Foot arriving to ambush them again. But they're prepared because they're being once with the Shadow and also getting hit by gas.
Gosh, I do hope there's more of them.
In the final battle, we have 3 parts of the fight. Round 1 is in the sewers, round 2 is taking place in the street,
God, I love being a turtle!
and finally round 3, the Foot top fight with some Foot and the Shredder. With the 2 minutes and such seconds, we get the Turtles fighting like a family at last. We see how much they have grown as a team, as brothers. But of course, just like with every single superhero film, we get the villain is matched with the heroes with a different philosophy, or we get a villain that outmatches a hero. And that is no different from the Shredder. The moment we get the Shredder on the rooftop, you can tell this man is not kidding here. We also get that with the Foot Clan. But the thing is, they're inexperienced. Most of them have never trained in their life. And even if they did, the only experience they have is how to fight in a tournament. They don't know how to fight in the real world. When the Shredder hits the scenes, the Turtles don't know who he is.
Does anybody have any idea about who or what this is?
They don't know why he's here, so they fight him one by one, with Mikey being the one who beats him the longest, not knowing that he's there to kill them for the things they have done throughout the whole movie. But when they find out they can't beat him, Leo clicks in his head that he could be the kidnapper of Splinter. So they find him again, angrier than ever. But they're overwhelmed by the Shredder. He doesn't need any help. How there's still some teens willing to take the fall for their master. While Casey Jones may convince the Foot Clan not to do this because it's just not worth it, there are still some people who have the respect for this man because they still believe he's the father worth saving. Unlike another father, it shows the Shredder's manipulation. He shows how much he hates this family that came from Master Yoshi. It shows how much he uses anger to get to the turtle's head. And it does to one more than the others, Leo. I love how much the showrunner or movie and comic writer does this to Leonardo. They show how even the most responsible one of the family gets angry. While we get hints and pieces of the breakdown that Leo may have, seeing this breakdown when he believes that Splinter may be dead, it shows how angry he can get with someone messing with his family. We see how much he doesn't know how to control his anger. Unlike Raphael learns how to control his anger because of the love of his family. He almost died believing his family doesn't care about him. But when he wakes up from a coma, he realizes that while he may fight a solo battle with his anger, he has a family that can be there for him because he knows they love him. But Leonardo doesn't think so. He goes for the attack on Shredder, and Splinter uses his life to make his brother stop fighting. When Splinter arrives on top of the roof, the turtles are happy to see him. But Splinter has to finally confront his past.
Yes, Urokusaki. We met many years ago in the home of my master, Omato Yoshi.
When Shredder realizes that it's the same rat who scarred him for life, he gets angry and goes for Splinter. But when Splinter flips him around and making him hold onto the spear with his life, Splinter states something.
Death comes for us, but something much worse comes for you. For when you die, it will be without honor.
The ending of this movie makes no exception to leave with a cliffhanger. April gets her job back and Casey Jones learns how important it is to have people in your life. And he even gets the girl. While Danny can't fix his mistakes with April and his father. Even the misbehaving teens make a difference by telling the cops where to go to find the hideout and destroy the Foot Clan for good. The turtles get their father back. They're so happy to see him. After the fire scene, they may have gotten closure with their dad with not being with them and accepting that truth. But when they see him, the fear is finally gone. They finally have their father back and they are now a whole as a family. Also, the turtles say their famous catchphrase. The reason I love this movie is because it was my first introduction to the TMNT franchise. While some movies make changes to make people like the film,
You actually go outside in these things? What would you prefer? Yellow spandex?
or they try to actually do what the comic does, sometimes they fail because they don't understand what they're making.
But let's not worry about all that.
This movie taught me a lot of things. It taught me how to be myself without anybody caring. It taught me how to resort with my anger. It taught me how to be funny.
Fight? Fight. Kitchen? Kitchen.
It taught me a lot of stuff that a lot of movies don't like to tackle anymore. And it gives a lesson that we would only get in an old movie like this. This movie teaches a lesson to kids that our parents are not going to be with us
Forever.
that we have to learn from them and learn from their mistakes. This movie teaches how to be a young adult.
But one day, I will be gone.
It catches the turtles by surprise to have this conversation. They're young, but they have to learn one way or another. It sucks to have to live with that reality that your parents may not be here for long in this world. Heck, this movie is the reason I'm a fan of the TMNT. And no offense, but ever since this movie came out, we never got another story like this, except for The Last Ronin. So if you're gonna take anything away with this is be with the people who love you for who you are. Be with the people who appreciate why you're you. And also remember about your parents. because they're not going to be here for long. You may have people guiding you, like your friends or your co-workers or heck, even loved ones. But remember what your parents taught you, because they have also lived a life full of mistakes, full of pain, full of anger. They just want what's best for you. So I have a feeling the only thing to say is try to do what your parents tell you to do.
In conclusion,
I love you, man.